950. Real Texas, Real Talk. KPRC Houston, an iHeart radio station.
All right, Mark Cuban not playing the national anthem before Dallas Mavericks games, and the social media, storm is really, quite amazing. Listen, I get it. I understand why people get upset when the national anthem is not played, when it used to be played. Two things you might want to know, though. Number one is the games haven't really been open to fans. So, and if there are any fans there, there's a handful of fans. So when you get right down to it, there weren't a whole lot of people to miss the anthem. Also, you probably should know that the chief communications officer for the NBA, his name is Mike Bass, has issued the following statement. He said, with NBA teams now in the process of welcoming fans back into their arenas, all teams will play the national anthem in keeping with long-standing league policy. But then again, I'm not an expert when it comes to taking care of things like that. This guy is. His name is Rob Weinhold. We've had him on the program before. He's a crisis leadership expert. I don't know if not playing the national anthem when you're a billionaire qualifies as a crisis or not, but he certainly has a PR issue, doesn't he?
Well, it certainly has attracted a lot of attention. There's a mantra in our business, and it's this: if you don't tell your story, someone else will, and someone else tells your story, it certainly won't be the story you want told. And so, to your point, late today, Cuban seemingly reversed course and will now play the national anthem after conversations with the league's front office. And by the way, just not the Mavericks, but every NBA team must play the anthem. So for me, a few points here. Some feel it's a bit odd. The NBA front office is reportedly changing stance on the national anthem. Perhaps this is due to maybe the public outcry resulting from Cuba's decision not to play the anthem, or that fans are now, as they've stated, are being permitted to enjoy the game. So regardless of the mechanics, I think there's still a bit of public whiplash, and many find themselves in the same spot. And it's this. Some will praise Cuban's decisions. Others will think it's absolutely disgraceful. And many others will be down the middle in terms of believing that he has a right to, make that decision and won't change their behavior one way or the other. Bottom line is, at least we now understand the why and have clarity around the decision, the reversal, and the spirit behind, what is making him tick in terms of whether or not he chose to or wants to play the national anthem.
I did not hear the official explanation from Mark Cuban. Why did he state that he did not play the anthem?
Well, I'd have to get the official statement, but, certainly he tried to strike the balance between, being patriotic and supporting, I think, the tenets of the country, but also, recognizing that there are people who feel like their voices have not been heard, predominantly people of color, and there's still a very large diversity, equity, and inclusion issue in this country, and social justice is important. So, as I read or was told about the statement, I feel like he's trying to strike the balance and still be in compliance with what the NBA expects. If you look at it from, a business standpoint, and as we advise or we work with large public companies all the way down to small restaurateurs and individuals, professional sports teams have four major revenue streams: ticket sales, sponsorships, food and beverage, and merchandise. And the question is, what's the downstream impact of Cuban making his point of view known, right? Fans who don't like the decision, they may choose to vote with their feet. Others may, choose to follow the team as a result of, Cuban making this stand. Sponsors will either double down on the investment or take their foot off the accelerator, or maybe not change their investment levels at all. And, of course, the food and beverage and merchandising vendors will also make their own decisions, and, they'll certainly take a hard look at the economic impact of those decisions. But to me, this is a whole lot of dust that's been kicked up and has brought the conversation to the forefront again. But one thing is pretty clear, and that is the NBA seems a little bit betwixt and between in terms of what they have expected from their teams within the past maybe week or two, but today have absolutely made it clear that they have no intention of not allowing teams to play the national anthem before their games. And by the way, Mark Cuban's a smart guy. He certainly wouldn't have done this without, considering the ramifications.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me that he's in a unique position in that he can just be as honest as he wants to be about why he did what he did. If he did it because he didn't want player protest being a distraction, or if he did it because he had players who would protest and it would make them uncomfortable and he wants them to perform better, or whatever the reason is, are you better off? I mean, the answer strikes me as being incredibly politically correct, which I get. I don't know that there's a lot of people anymore that are interested in politically correct answers, or are they?
Well, I think it could be not an or, but an and, right? So maybe all of those boxes are checked. I'm going to do something that supports the social causes I believe in. I'm going to protect my players at the same time. I'm going to use my platform to take a stand because that's what I believe, leaders do. And so I think it's not an or, but an and. And so if you take a look at corporate social responsibility in this world today, leaders are expected to have an opinion. They do have a platform. They have a voice. And as you know, with a platform and a voice, some people will agree, some people will not, but many, I think, will sit back and try to really understand the spirit behind the decisions that you're making, and then they have a decision to make. Do I want to align myself with that brand or not?
Well, and that's Rob. I think that's the big thing that's changed, and of course, it depends on what side of the political aisle you're on. I mean, you take a look at a Mike Lindell, and he has been pretty effectively banned by companies who basically said, we don't like what you believe in, we're not going to sell your product anymore, even though people don't buy his product based upon his politics. We've also seen some rather big corporations take political stands on the left that might just go ahead and alienate a lot of people in the middle and on the right. It's interesting to me. Corporations used to be afraid to take any sort of a political stand because they felt like if we're going to lose business on this side or we'll lose business on that side. We're here to sell products. We're here to provide goods and services. We're not here to take a political stand. That is obviously changed.
Well, it's changed, and the teaching point here is this. Crises cost time, money, customers, and eventually your career, right? And generally in that order. And what I always say is reputation leads to trust, and trust leads to valuation. And not all currency, by the way, is financial. So when you take a look at those models in our body of work, we've seen this happen over and over and over again. And along with the voice and the platform, there is risk and also opportunity. And so I think the forward-thinking leaders, like a Mark Cuban, they're very aware of the ramifications, and sometimes they make the right decisions, other times they don't. But I think any leader, if you're looking in the mirror and you're projecting what you stand for and you wholeheartedly believe in, I think that's perfectly acceptable. But what is also acceptable is the consumer base then has a decision to make whether or not to line up behind that brand.
What does it tell you, by the way, that the NBA, that the league itself is basically come out and said we have a long-standing tradition of playing the anthem before the game. All teams will play the anthem. Why do you think it is that they've made that a league-wide policy? Is that to take the pressure off the owners, or is that to make a statement to American fans who maybe aren't feeling as nice and cozy with the NBA the last few years?
Well, playing the national anthem has been, tradition for, more than 100 years or so at this point. And I think that according to the NBA, it's in their policies. It's something that NBA teams are required to do, although there has been some sentiment that there's been a little bit of a relaxation in that policy. But, now they're under scrutiny. And I think the court of public opinion is watching and saying, what are you going to do? So they had to make a decision. Either they're going to decide to give teams the flexibility, or they're going to mandate the teams have to play it. And I think it's a little bit of a safer bet. And I think also it does absorb the court of public opinion shock for the NBA teams so that they're not hanging out there alone or in small bundles. So, again, an interesting decision, a very interesting debate and conversation. But one thing is clear. If you are a leader in today's marketplace, people want to know what you think, and then they're also going to make a decision about you and vote with their feet or their pocketbook or whatever else they have to vote with.
All right, Rob, good to hear from you. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate it. Rob Weinhold joining us here on AM 950 KPRC.